were Canaanites. In fact, God didn't hate them at all. He hated what they were doing and the effect that what they were doing was having on themselves and on other people. Is that what you're saying? Okay. So then when God tells Israel to go in there, is he telling them to go in there and kill people? Okay. Sorry, I missed the beginning. Say that again, where you started? Okay, so God's giving. Yes. 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 So what Karen is saying is eventually Israel started doing all the same things that the Canaanites were doing at this point in the story, and God also had to deal with them and move them out, right? This is why looking at any Bible story by itself, without history from before and to figure out what happens later, you're missing the big picture. So there's a text I wanted to put in my slides that I forgot. So turn your Bibles to Genesis 15, because this is key. Genesis 15. Yes, that's right. Okay, we're actually going to start in 13. So this is Genesis 15, verse 13, and God begins to open to Abraham the future of his descendants. Abraham doesn't even have one child yet, which is, you got to remember that too, right? So he's telling a man with no children how his descendants how their future's going to go. Know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in a land that is not theirs. They will serve them. They will afflict them 400 years. Also, the nation whom they serve, I will judge. Afterward, they will come out with great possessions. As for you, Abraham, you will go to your fathers in peace. You will be buried at a good old age. But in the 4th generation, they shall return here, your descendants. For the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete. So the Amorites are a nation living in Canaan, where Abraham is. He says your descendants are going to go to another country, which we find out later is Egypt. They're going to live there for 400 years. God's going to judge Egypt for mistreating them. He's going to move Israel out back to the land of Canaan, and he's going to move the Amorites out, but he's not going to do that until then because their sin is not yet full. What does that mean? What does that mean? So, if we could build a family tree coming from Noah and his wife and their 3 sons, you'd find that Egypt is a nation descended from Ham, that the Amorites are a nation descended from Ham, that Abraham's a nation descended from Shem. It's all the same family. And God at certain points in history is saying to certain parts of the family, enough is enough. Has nothing to do with God loving some more and some less. He's just said, because of your behavior, enough is enough. All right. Does the God of the Bible have favorites? No. Can it seem that way if you just read one story? Absolutely. Does the God of the Bible endorse genocide? Now, genocide is when you wipe out an entire people. So, those Quebecers, we're just going to get rid of them. Just every single one of them. Just boom. Genocide is happening in Palestine as we sit here. Just get rid of them. All of them. Is God a God of genocide? No. So when God says enough is enough to a certain people in a certain place, it's not because he doesn't like those people. It's actually quite the opposite. Gerald says they're not going according to his way of thinking. The problem with that statement is it makes God seem like he's arbitrary. He's like, listen, you do it my way or else. Yes, the problem with sin is not that God doesn't like it. The problem with sin is that it kills people. That's the problem. So God says, look, either I can step in before everybody's dead, and there'll be some hope for the future, or I can do nothing, and it's over. So, for example, the flood, which most people don't seem to see or realize, it says God looked down and he saw the end of all humanity. And then he said to Noah, you need to build a boat. Because if you don't build a boat and we don't do something, it's over. Because sin itself kills. So when God intervenes, it may seem harsh. It may seem, whoa, what are you doing? But if he doesn't intervene, right? Okay, was Israel in harmony with God's will when they went to war? So in the stories that we've looked at this week, in the book of Joshua, you read through, there's lots of wars. Was Israel fully in sync with God's will when they went to war? We have some no's. Any yeses? Because when you read it, if you just read it, surface read it, it sounds like they're just doing what God told them to do. A lot of who could have escaped? Oh, the people living in the land. Okay, yeah. Do we have indication already in the book of Joshua that God was interested in saving people in Canaan? What evidence do we have? Like the lessons that we've already done, we started at the beginning of October. Is there evidence in those stories that God was trying to save people who lived in Canaan? Who has he saved so far? He didn't just save Rahab and whoever else came into her house. We don't even know how many. She ended up marrying an Israelite. She ends up becoming a mother in the line of Jesus. So it wasn't just like, oh yeah, I guess we can save one of those filthy scoundrels, but keep them in the background, don't tell anybody they're here. No, she comes front and center in the story. So we already know that God is interested in saving people in Canaan. Because God is interested in saving everybody. This is not about genocide. This is about God saving people from themselves. All right, so the big question we're going to have to answer as we go is, was Israel in harmony with God's will when they went to war? Because if you surface read some of the stories, like, well, of course, he told them to do it. But if you back up and look at the bigger picture, which we've already hinted at already, and we'll get there, there's more to the story. Okay, this is something that's a struggle for some people. I've had one-on-one conversations with people, and they're like, I don't know. There's the ideal, and then there's reality, right? So when you're a parent, you envision having children, you're going to have children, you're going to raise them well, they're going to be obedient, they're going to be cooperative, they're going to sleep through the night, they're going to do well in school, they're going to do all these things, right? That's the ideal. And then you have your children and you realize, oh man, these kids are way too much like me. And reality sets in, right? And sometimes you have to punish your children more than you want to, way more than you want to, right? So now you have this ideal that you were hoping for, and now you're stuck in reality. And someday your kid says, I want this, and you say, no, you can't have that. And they say, I hate you. Do they hate you? Not really. And do you not want them to have good things? No. It's just that what they want in that moment isn't good for them, but they don't see that. So there's ideal and there's reality. It is a struggle for us to separate what happens in reality with what could or should have happened in God's plan A. So in other words, when you read the Bible, you're reading what did happen. You're not reading what could have happened if Israel at the beginning had done the ideal. So God's here, we're here. God says, hey, I want you to do this. And we're like, oh, I don't want to do that. And because we don't want to do that, we go over here and we do something else. Now we're not in ideal anymore. Now we're in some other reality. So now God has to relate to this reality, even though he wanted to be doing it over here. So now this reality plays out, and we look at it and say, well, that must be what God wanted because that's how it went. No. That's how it went because that's what we did. It can be hard for us to recognize that God condescending to enter our messes does not mean he endorses our choices. Are you following? Are you following? Just because God is willing to go to plan B or plan C or plan D or plan W does not mean that God likes the plan. It just means he's working with things the way they are. Okay, so let's look at a story that has nothing to do with war, but it's significant. In 1 Samuel chapter 8, Israel begins to ask for a king. Okay? Does God want Israel to have a king? No. So in God's ideal scenario, his people will say, we don't need a human king. We have a king. That's the ideal. But things got sideways. And the further they got from God, the worse things went. And the worse things went, the more they became convinced, well, things are bad because we don't have a human king. All the other nations are beating us in war, and they seem to be doing just fine. They all have kings. If we had a king like they have a king, we'd be good. Good question. Why did God not want us to have a king? Why does God not want people to have a human king? Yeah. So he's just jealous? You can't have a king, I'm your king. He did warn them, but before we get there, why does he not want us to have a human king? Why did he not want Israel to have a human king? It's a good question. Okay, he knows better, but what's better? What's better about having God as a king versus a human king? Okay, so it takes our focus and dependence away from him onto someone else. And who is that someone else going to be? Just as flawed, stupid, ignorant, scared, dumb as me. Is that the king you want? Like, what human is capable of replacing God's leadership? What human? Okay, next one. All right, 1 Samuel 8:6 says this. The people had come to Samuel asking for a king. It says, but the thing displeased Samuel when they said, give us a king to judge us. So Samuel at that point is the prophet and the judge in Israel. So he at that point would be the highest human, even though he isn't a king. He doesn't like this idea. He doesn't want this. So the person that is their leader, the highest human leader they have, but not a king, says this is a bad idea. So we want a human leader to lead us, to guide us, to tell us what to do. They have a human leader who's guiding them and encouraging them to make God their king. And when he says it's a bad idea, what do they say? We don't care if you think it's a bad idea. We want what we want. So what's Samuel do? Rest of the verse. The thing displeased Samuel when they said, give us a king. So Samuel, who's Samuel's king? God. How did the Lord respond to Samuel? Here's the response. The Lord said to Samuel, heed the voice of the people in all that they say to you. Would you be happy if you were Samuel and God told you that? Give them what they want. Just whatever they want. Just give it to them. For they have not rejected you. They have rejected me, and I'm going to let them. That I should not reign over them, according to all the works which they have done since the day I brought them out of Egypt, even to this day, with which they have forsaken me and served other gods, so they are doing to you also. Now therefore heed their voice. However, you shall solemnly warn them and show them the behavior of the king who will reign over them. So God's response is, hey, listen, let them have what they want, but make sure you tell them in advance what's going to happen. What's God doing? He's being a parent. Is he being a good parent? Do good parents just let their kids do whatever they want? Heed the voice of the people and all that they say to you. Just let them do what they want. Does God always let us do whatever we want? Like in every Bible story, does God just throw his hands up and say, hey, let them do what they want? No. But in this instance, he does. He says, listen, they've been pushing back against me since Egypt. Hundreds of years. It's time to just let them have what they want. Why? Sometimes the only way we learn is to get what we think we want. And in this case, God's like, just let them. But warn them. Okay. So at this moment in Israel's history, are they on God's plan A, or are they moving to some other plan? Okay, they're moving to some other plan. Is God going to move with them, or is he going to say, listen, I'm a plan A God, so if you go over there, you're on your own? He's going to move. Because he's going to move, we're going to read the rest of the story and make the false assumption that because God has moved with them, he's in favor of what they're doing. That's a false assumption. That's a false assumption. This is not God's plan anymore. This is a whole new plan, and God, because of his mercy, is willing to walk with them in their stupidity, but it's not his plan. What's that? Yes, because his hope is eventually they're going to realize we made a mistake. And they're going to be willing to go back to closer to plan A. which is why God sees the end from the beginning. He judges the heart, and he sorts all that out, right? I don't even try and figure that out. On that note, though, let me just tell one story. It's a bit of an aside, but it's important. Moses, near the end of his life, struck the rock, right? He wasn't supposed to. So he's not on God's plan. He's on a different plan. God says, because you did this, you're not going to see the promised land. Then Moses goes up Mount, was it Nebo? And it says, his strength was not weakened, his eyes were not dim, he was in good health. Yet at the top of the mountain, he dies. So why did he die? He didn't die from poor health. He didn't die from old age. He died because God said, your story's in this story. You're not part of the story anymore. Go to sleep. Then what? So if you stop the story right there, you're like, okay, Moses was doing fairly good. Then he really messed up. God was really upset. So he said, you're not part of the story anymore. To bed with you. And if the story ended there, people might think, well, Moses is lost. He was doing good, but now he's lost. But what's the Bible say happened after that? He was resurrected, and where is he now? He's in heaven. So then you have another story like Uzzah, who touched the ark, and he died, and we don't get to hear the rest of Uzzah's story. So now we're stuck with Uzzah. Well, is Uzzah dead because that was the end of his story? His last move was a mistake, and he's done forever? Or could Uzzah be like Moses? He died to teach a lesson to the people, but he's going to be in heaven. We don't know the answer. We don't need to know the answer. God is a saving God. He knows the answer, and I'm okay with that. Next. Back. Was God in favor of Israel having a king? Careful. Say that again, Karen? He gave them what he wanted. That doesn't mean he was in favor of it. You see, the answer to this question really depends on how you look at it. God was not ultimately in favor, but at that point in history, he was in favor because he knew the only way these people are going to learn how stubborn and stupid they are is to give them what they want. So in that sense, he was in favor. But ultimately, he was not in favor. See, it's messy. Uh-oh.
Sorry, just
give him a second. He'll get there. All right. Okay, so let's go back to last week's lesson. It came to pass when Joshua was by Jericho, I think this is Joshua 5, if I remember right, that he lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, a man stood opposite him with a sword drawn in his hand. Joshua went to him and said, "Are you for us or for our adversaries?" So at this moment in time, the nation of Israel, with Joshua as their human leader, is camping at Gilgal, and Joshua has taken a stroll down to Jericho because he knows that their next move is to somehow conquer this city. He doesn't know how they're going to do it. He doesn't know anything. Would you say it's fair to say that Joshua's nervous? Yeah. So in this state of mind and in this circumstance that he finds himself, let me illustrate it this way for those of you who are parents. The hardest thing about being a parent is that you've never done it before, right? Right? And every time something comes up, you're like, not only have I never done this before, but there's no going back either. Like whatever decision I make in this moment, I can't go back and undo it if I find out later it was the wrong one. Joshua has never been the leader before in this situation. He's facing a situation he has never faced before. So he's nervous. And in this state of mind, in this situation that he's in, he comes across this dude who's huge, who has a sword, and looks terrifying and imposing. And his question is an obvious question. It's the question you probably would have asked and I probably would have asked. Listen, man, where did you come from? Who are you? And are you for me and for my people? Or are you for them and those people? What's the answer? What's the answer? He said, no. But as commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come. How many of you play chess? Anybody? I don't really play. I haven't played a game for ages, like years. Chess is a game of strategy. Now, this analogy has limitations, so don't take it too far. In the game of chess, sometimes a player will choose to lose a piece because they recognize that in losing this piece, I can gain more later. God is looking down on a world where nothing is as it ought to be. Nothing. There isn't plan A anywhere. And so he's like, well, what can I do given the mess and where it is at right now to make things work out the best way possible? So he didn't show up to Jericho because he was in favor of Israel. He didn't show up at Jericho because he was in favor of Jericho. He showed up as the commander of the army of the Lord. And who does the Lord want to save? Everybody. Is he going to be able to save everybody? Why? Because he's incompetent? Because of our own choices. Then there are people caught in the circle of other people's choices. I mean, just think about it practically. We live in Canada. Do you agree with every decision that the government of Canada makes? Yet you are caught in the circle of the choices that they're making. Right? So Rahab is in Jericho. She's caught in the circle of a city who's decided that even though we know we're against God, we're not moving. But she doesn't want to be on that side. So she says, hey, can we be on your side? That's why the commander of the army's there. To pull out of Jericho as many as are willing. He's not there to fight for Israel against Jericho or for Jericho against Israel. He's there to save. Who is this? Joshua fell on his face to the earth and worshipped and said to him, what does my Lord say to his servant? The commander of the Lord's army said to Joshua, take off your sandals from your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Who is this? It's Jesus. It's Jesus. Jesus showed up to rescue, to save. All right. How much time do we have left? We got a little bit. Next. All right. Based on the encounter in Jericho with Joshua, is Jesus in favor of genocide? So again, for those of you just coming in late, genocide, if you're not sure what it is, genocide is when you purposely set out to eliminate all the people of a certain nation, place, race, ethnicity, whatever. You're done. Based on Jesus' conversation with Joshua, is he in favor of genocide? No. What does Joshua's question betray about Joshua's thinking? His question was, are you for us or for our enemies? What does his question tell you about Joshua? Not necessarily that God takes sides, but that Joshua assumes that God takes sides. Because in Joshua's mind, there are two distinct groups right now. There's my people, and there's those people. And you have to be for them or for us. You can't be both. You see the problem? We project onto God our view of things. God's either for Christians and against Muslims, or he's for Muslims and against Christians. God's either for Israel and against Palestine, or he's for Palestine and he's against Israel. We keep making these projections. And Jesus steps in and says, no, that's not how that is. That's not how I am. You've missed it. All right, let's keep going. We're going to run out of time. Another piece of the puzzle. This is from Exodus 23:23. So we studied Exodus last quarter, but we missed this part because it's pretty hard to study all of Exodus in 13 weeks. For my angel will go before you. This is God telling Israel how things are going to be in the future when they get to Canaan. My angel, capital A, commander of the army, Jesus, will go before you, bring you into the Amorites. Remember, the sin of the Amorites wasn't full when he talked to Abraham 400 years before. The Hittites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, I will cut them off. Who's going to cut them off? Jesus is going to cut them off. You shall not bow down to their gods, nor serve them, nor do according to their works. You shall utterly overthrow them. Who's the them? This is no, it's not. This is very important. God said, when it comes to the nations, I will do it. When it comes to their gods, their places of worship, and all of those things, you will do it. You will completely break down their sacred pillars. I'm going to drive the people out of the land. Once they're gone, you go to their places of worship and their idols and you destroy them. I'll deal with the people. You get rid of the religious garbage. So you shall serve the Lord your God. He will bless your bread and water. I will take sickness away from the midst of you. No one shall suffer miscarriage or be barren in the land. I will fulfill the number of your days. So think of this practically. God's saying to the nation of Israel, listen, if you will cooperate with me, this is what I will do for you. Now, if you are another nation, one of these nations, and you're seeing the blessings in Israel and all the things that God's doing for them, would you want to be part of your nation or would you want to be part of Israel? You see, God's desire is, listen, if I could just find some people who would actually stay on plan A, we could do some amazing things. And the rest of the world would see plan A and go, hey, that's pretty good. Unfortunately, we're not very good at sticking on plan A. Next. Okay, same section. Oh, back up. I will send my fear before you. That's just another way of saying Jesus. I will send Jesus before you. I will cause confusion among all the people to whom you come. Will make all your enemies turn their backs to you. I will send hornets before you, which will drive out the Hivite, the Canaanite, the Hittite from before you. I will not drive them out from before you in 1 year, lest the land become desolate and the beasts of the field become too numerous for you. Little by little, I will drive them out from before you until you have increased and you inherit the land. What was plan A? War? Was plan A war and bloodshed? That was not plan A. So when you come to war and bloodshed in the Old Testament, you are not coming to plan A. You are not reading about how it should have been. You're reading about how it actually happened. That is why people read the Old Testament and they come to the conclusion God is a God of war and bloodshed when they miss the fact that this was never plan A to begin with. God says, listen, I'll deal with the people. And he's super practical. He says, listen, I'm not going to do it all quickly, because if I do it all quickly, the land's going to be barren and desolate. It's going to grow up and be nonsense. I'm not doing that. Little by little, as you can handle it, I will drive them out, and you will increase, and you will inherit the land. What's an inheritance? Something you earn, something you fight for, or something that's given to you? Something that's given to you. All right, another piece of the next one. Yeah. One more story. This is 2 Chronicles 20. So this is many, many years later, after many plan B, D, C, G, F, Q, many things have gone wrong. The kingdom has split north and south. There's now kingdom of Israel, king of Judah, two sets of kings. And there's this story in 2 Chronicles 20 where three nations who, if things had gone according to plan A, would either not exist anymore or they would have become part of Israel by choice. But that's not how it went, so now we're on a different plan again. And these three nations are coming against Judah to destroy them. And when Judah finds out they're coming to destroy them and a war is about to break out, they're like, listen, we're not ready for war. We're going to get annihilated. We don't know what to do. So they pray. And they just lay it out before God and say, listen, we don't know what to do. In fact, the king, mistakenly in his prayer, actually blames God and says, listen, if you would have done to these people what you said you were going to do to these people, we wouldn't be in this situation. Where God's like, hey, listen, if you had listened to me and done what I asked you to do, we also wouldn't be in this situation. But God is merciful. And he doesn't chastise Jehoshaphat for his mistake in his prayer. He doesn't go back into history and say, nah, it's my fault, not your fault, my fault. He doesn't do any of that. Here's what happens. He speaks through a prophet, and he says, listen, all you of Judah and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, you, King Jehoshaphat, thus says the Lord to you, do not be afraid, nor dismayed because of this great multitude, for the battle is not yours, but, you see a theme? I will fight for you. I will do this. Tomorrow, go down against them. Well, I thought you said it was your battle. What are we doing? They will surely come up by the ascent of Ziz. You will find them at the end of the brook before the wilderness of Jeruel. You will not need to fight in this battle. Position yourselves, stand still, and observe, watch the salvation of the Lord, because the battle is God's, not yours. Who is with you, O Judah and Jerusalem? Do not fear or be dismayed. Tomorrow go out against them, for the Lord is with you. You need to go out not to fight. You need to go out to see what I'm going to do. You see, the beauty of Jericho, when Jericho fell, who knocked the walls down? Which means both the people inside and the people outside knew this was not a human thing. No human did this. When I pick up a gun to shoot at you and you pick up a gun to shoot at me and one of us lives and one of us dies, you say, oh man, look, that guy's a good shot. What a hero. But when God steps in and knocks walls down that no human had any power over, guess who gets the credit? God does. But when we push God aside and say, let us go to war and fight, who gets the credit? And we get more and more confused thinking it's on us instead of on him. It's just a mess. All right, what happens next? Next slide. So they rose early in the morning and they went out into the wilderness of Tekoa. So what are they doing right now? They're doing what God told them to do. Good things happen when we do what God asks us to do. And they went out. Jehoshaphat stood and said, hear me, O Judah, and you inhabitants of Jerusalem, believe in the Lord your God, and you will be established. Believe his prophets, and you will prosper. When he had consulted with the people, he appointed those. Notice, he's a king, right? He didn't tell the people. He consulted with the people. Yeah. There's a good way to rule, and there's a bad way to rule. He appointed those who should sing to the Lord. He put the choir in the front of the army, who should praise the beauty of holiness. And as they went out before the army, they were saying, praise the Lord, for his mercy endures forever. And it's a good thing, too, because if God wasn't merciful, he wouldn't be fighting for Judah anymore, because Judah's been off plan A for a long time. Next one. What happens? Next slide. Now when they began to sing and to praise, the Lord set ambushes against the people of Ammon and Moab and Mount Seir who had come against Judah. They were defeated. For the people of Ammon and Moab stood up against the inhabitants of Mount Seir to utterly kill and destroy them. And when they had made an end of the inhabitants of Seir, they turned and helped destroy one another. Those three nations ended up killing each other. Judah had to do nothing except show up. Because if they hadn't shown up, they wouldn't have seen what God can do. Oh, one more back. Oh, we're out of time. We're out of time. All right. Very important lesson. If the one thing you need to remember from the whole thing is we're not on plan A. God works with us in plan B, but don't think plan B was ever his ultimate plan. It was not. Ayai, would you pray for us?